think that the only thing I want to say here, and I'll turn it over to you, that really does put the onus on the cops is clearly they lacked the training or capacity to control him physically and take him down so that they wouldn't have to use lethal force, right? I mean, like cops who actually could restrain somebody could have easily restrained him. He was outnumbered. He was walking away from them in a way that allowed for any cop with a modicum of training to take him down and hold him down. And the fact that they couldn't do that suggests that there's a serious recruitment problem and training problem, and we know this is true, nationwide. And so that's something to be worried about and rectified. But I mean, even there, people's intuitions about what cops should be doing, should be allowed to do, all of this has run off the rails in mainstream media. I mean, it's a point of seemingly absolute consensus that cops should never use, a rear neck restraint, otherwise known as a rear naked choke, because some number of people have died under those conditions or seem to have died under those conditions. I think in many cases that was not, in fact, their cause of death. Whereas a rear naked choke is, in fact, if done appropriately, a remarkably safe procedure. I mean, it's done in every jiu-jitsu school in the country every day of the year. And if it had any high rate of lethality, you would just be seeing people die all over the country all the time in jiu-jitsu training. And this is now, I think it's illegal in New York now, and maybe illegal in other states for cops to even attempt this. What you have done when you remove that tool, you have made it far more likely that cops are going to have to resort to lethal force because they can't. It's really one of the only ways to incapacitate someone so that you can cuff them if you're going to rely on your grappling skills. And so it's just, everything is upside down here. What you have to know is that every permutation of this kind of encounter has happened. So you can find video, again, with the race of everyone swapped in and out, right? You can find video where the guy reaches into his car, pulls out a gun, and shoots the cop in the face and kills him, right? And every cop knows about those kinds of encounters, right? So it's just, you have to game this out more fully than your knee-jerk reaction may admit of, which is, it is just awful that we're living in a society where cops shoot a guy in the back in front of his kids, right, with an apparent intent of killing him, right, as a way to pacify him. I mean, how did we get here? This is completely insane and unacceptable. But once the wheels begin to come off in an encounter like this, there are very few options open to people who don't have, all the tools that might be possible there. I mean, again, cops of sufficient strength and training could have easily taken this guy down and held him down. He wouldn't have been injured in the end, right? So there's an absolute deficit of training and recruitment there that is visible to the eye of anyone who knows what is going on. And then there's the fact that I think a taser was used before the video picks up and failed. But, people think that tasers are magic. Well, why not always use them? Well, they're not magic, and they often fail, and they're more dangerous than a neck restraint, which has now been ruled illegal, right? Because if you tase someone and it works and they fall to the concrete and hit their head, that is virtually always worse than actually being choked out, in a jiu-jitsu class. So people have to become better students of this kind of violence before they have these reactions that seem to justify burning down half a city or writing headlines which attest yet again in the loudest possible way that we have a real problem of lethal racist violence perpetuated by cops.